The angels decides not to help them, so Hajime shows her the light, allowing Shay to break her arms so he can introduce some lead to her chest. The angel rises again and drops Legos on them. Hajime dodges the attacks while holding his harem and comes behind her. He grapples to the angel and knocks her to the floor so Yue can freeze her in place. Hajime uses a device to penetrate her with a rod, but it wasn't deep enough, so Shay comes in to push it deeper and destroys the core. Yue gives Shay a good girl pat, as the robot turns on and warns them that if they learn all the ancient magic, they will become the enemies of God, and passes on to another world. Our party enters the final door and is surprised to find the angel still alive. Shay goes over and hand out punishment, then they enter the circle and learn gravity magic. She hands Hajime her ring, but he goes over to kindly request that she gives him all her shit. After getting robbed, the angel flushes them down her toilet, but on her way down Shay sees a fugly fish that scared her. They arrive on the land, but Shay drinks some water, so Hajime goes over and tries to give her CPR. Seeing her chance, Shay begins eating his face until he finds the strength to push her off of him. They go to an inn and try to get a room, but Shay and Yue begins arguing about who should sleep with Hajime. Then she shouts in front of everyone that she wants Hajime to be the first to clap her cheeks, so he decides to bust a few rounds in her. The next day they meet with the guild master. He gives them a mission to rescue a noble's son who went missing in the mountains, and after a little extortion Hajime accepts. He rides his vroom and begins to get excited about stopping by a village to eat some rice. At the village, Hajime's teacher and classmates work on the farm. They decide to take a break and have some lunch when Hajime with his harem suddenly walks in. The teacher gets up and goes over to meet her student. He tries to leave, but she won't let him, so he starts eating while ignoring all her questions. The teacher gets upset, so the knight comes over and scolds them for eating with a furry, then forks around and finds out that he's not bulletproof. Hajime tells his class to forget that they ever found him and threatens to Sekai anyone else that gets in his way. He begins cheering up Shay, and Yue reveals his deepest secret and says that he pets Shay's ears while she sleeps. They get up and leave the teacher at the restaurant. She goes home and decides to bring him back, but Hajime already solid snaked into her room. They sit down and he decides to tell her the truth of this world. Long ago in the Age of War, a group of people found out that their god was just using them as entertainment, so they tried to overthrow him. But the god turned the people against them, so they were massacred, forcing the few who remained to create labyrinths and give whoever overcame their trials knowledge and power. She questions if he'll fight God, but he refuses because he just wants to return home. The teacher tells him that Kaori always believed he was alive, so he warns the teacher to watch their backs because there is an imposter among them who tried to send him to heaven. Our party sets out on his adventure and sees the teacher is gathered with her students to join them. He tells her no, but she says that after this adventure they will leave him alone. He summons the vroom and goes off into the mountain. They exit the harem carrier, where Hajime sends out drones that scatter into the forest and finds a battlefield filled with many broken weapons. They travel up the mountain until they find a waterfall. Yue pulls off a Moses so they can enter and find the missing noble inside. Hajime gently wakes him up, but the noble begins freaking out because a dragon smote his party. Hajime embraces him and says that he shouldn't mourn for them but continue living on while remembering their sacrifice. They exit the cave, but a sudden wind blows them away. The dragon appears in front of them and uses solar beams, so Hajime summons a shield to tank the attack. He begins to struggle, but his classmates comes in clutch to hold it off. Yue uses gravity magic to knock it down so Shay can give it a pounding. The dragon gets back up and uses tail whip on Shay, then shoots a blast towards the noble, forcing Yue to play defense. The dragon charges another hyper beam, so Hajime counters with his BFG to match its attack and knock it down. He goes on the creature to fist it, then jumps off, but leaves it a little surprise. He summons the impaler and tries to penetrate it, but the dragon's too thick, so he calls Shay to come in and smash it into the ground to knock it out. Hajime grabs the spike and puts it where the sun doesn't shine. The dragon begins freaking out and begs him to pull out. He realizes that she is a dragonborn and begins to push it deeper to punish the freaky dragon girl until she submits to him. She says that she left her village to see the summoned heroes, but she stopped to have a rest. While she's sleeping, a mage placed her under a spell to attack the adventurers. The noble argues that she sent his friends to heaven, so Hajime decides to go all the way in. But Yue convinces him to spare her because she was being controlled by someone else. He decides to pull out the spike from the dragon's lap warmers, causing her to climax and transforms to her normal form. Tio tells them that a large army of monsters are marching to attack the nearby town, and reveals that she can give them a lift after a day of rest, but she can't move because Hajime was too rough with her. So he goes over and gently carries her across the floor. In the morning, Hajime begins making walls for defense while everyone else begins evacuating the civilians to prepare for the war. Night falls while Hajime admires his work. He notices that the freaky dragon has been stalking him, so she comes out and begs him to make her join his party while his harem watches. The army of monsters arrives. Hajime goes over and gives the citizens a speech that gives his teacher credit for saving them and claims that he is her sword. He summons his railgun to show them what technology can do. They begin the fight by spewing miniguns and fireworks at the poor bastards, followed by a stream of magic from Tio that she turns into a burning inferno to consume them, but Yue comes in and begins playing catch with the monsters. The battle turns into a tower defense game with the creatures standing no chance against the might of the Hole Makers. Tio runs out of magic and Hajime is out of bullets, so he takes Shay on the vroom vroom to go into combat to throw hands instead and gives them a mind-blowing experience. They slaughter all the creatures in their path until Hajime confronts the person behind the attack. He tries to run but falls off the wolf and is taken back to the village. It's revealed that he is their classmates, and he explains that when he went up into the mountain he met a demon that convinced him to take control of all the monsters so he can unalive his teacher. She takes his hands and tells him that she won't allow him to become evil, but he embraces her and put a needle at her breather. Shay suddenly jumps at them to take one for the team, so Hajime no-scopes whoever was trying to escape. He goes over to Shay, but she reveals that his teacher has been poisoned, so he feeds her a potion in the most normal way possible. Then goes over to Shay and heals her. The traitor begins bleeding out on the ground, so the teacher begs Hajime to save him. Hajime asks him if he is their enemy, so he says that he swears to be good. Hajime decides to book him a one-way ticket to heaven because he was lying, and leaves her to mourn for the loss of her student. Our party returns the noble to his home and they go to their room where Shay reminds Hajime that he promised to take her around town, but he sees that they're being watched. In the morning, Yue gently wakes up Tio, while Hajime and Shay goes out on their date. They see an aquarium and goes in to see the fugly fish. Hajime has a heart-to-heart with the unfortunate creature and it reveals that he was captured and imprisoned, so they sneak it out. They continue the date into town where Hajime senses someone under his feet. They go down and find a little one in the filth. They bring her to a room where Shay bathes and feeds her. Then Hajime comes in to dry her hair. She reveals to them that she was kidnapped and sold on the market. He carries her to the city guards and decides to leave her in their care. But while walking away, an explosion in the distance catches their attention. They head inside to see a note asking for Hajime to bring Shay to them or the little one gets hurt. So he decides to give them an ass beating. Yue and Tio sits having lunch. An explosion happens with Shay and Hajime arriving. He tells them what happened and reveals that they're gonna visit every gang until they find the culprit. Our party goes around condemning everyone they find to an early visit with God, until Hajime finds the boss and gives him a few more holes. He frees the girl and embraces her so he can bring her above the city and shows her the beauty of fireworks. He introduces the girl to the party, and they head off on the road with Shay taking the lead and giving them a view. Until they reach a town. They go to visit the guild leader and gives him a note, but an adventure suddenly bursts through the door. It's revealed that he is Hajime's classmate, so he goes over and begs him to save the other adventurers left in the labyrinth. He explains that while they were exploring, they were suddenly confronted by a demon. She recognized Amenagawa as the hero and asks him to join her. He refuses, so she summons monsters to knock them down, but Kaori comes in to heal everyone. They all began fighting back against the demons, but they were too strong and they were only able to barely survive the onslaught. Shizuka tells her classmate to sneak out and call for help. He reaches the knights and tells him everything that happened, but he was followed by a monster, so they send him to the surface while they hold it off. After he left, Amanagawa limit breaks and manages to take down one of her monsters. The demon uses a spell, so they put up a barrier to block it, but she summons some pussycats to go over and penetrate the barrier maker. Amanagawa dispels the shadow but finds that she's already gone. He gets up to get revenge, but Shizuka slaps some sense into them and they begin to retreat. The knight suddenly arrives and tells them to do whatever it takes to survive as the monster comes in to give him an early retirement. Amanagawa prepares to go all out and slays another monster, forcing the demon to put up a shield, but he strikes through and goes to end it. He stops because she has a family and she takes the chance to summon a horse to knock him away. Shizuka fights it in a one-on-one, but another appears to blow her back out. Kaori goes to her with the barrier maker's assistance and decides that they will leave this world together. The horses break through the barrier, but it gets made into a shish kebab as Hajime appears on the battlefield. The rest of the party comes down as the monsters get ready to be slaughtered. The demon makes a portal, but he spawn camps the monster and begins showing her the power of America. He does a devil may cry and makes all her monsters become a hashtag. The mighty turtle uses hyper beam, so he takes out his shield and reflects it at the demon to take out the bird, then decides to feed the great turtle some fireworks. The demon feels fear and tries to use magic on him so she can make her escape, but Hajime blocks her path and decides to kindly ask her why she tried to attack them. She reveals that someone else gave her all the monsters and told her to attack them, so he decides to send her on a journey. Amanagawa begs for her life, but mercy isn't in Hajime's vocabulary. They come over to Hajime, where Kaori begins crying and apologizes for not saving him. He tells her that it's alright and she begins to embrace him. They continue on their journey while Amanagawa begins questioning why he had to smoke her. Hajime says that anyone who stands in his way will get a free ticket to heaven and walks away from them. They leave the dungeon, so Kaori decides it's time to go over to him and joins his party, then expresses that she loves him more than anyone in this world. Hajime reveals that he's more into prison charges, so Yue accepts the challenge to show her that she loves him more. Hajime tells Kaori that they'll be leaving soon, so she says goodbye to her old party and heads off to begin her new journey with Hajime. Like the video. If you liked the video, subscribe for more, and thanks for watching. Stay swifty.